Hello everybody, hope you're all doing very well today. My name is Mason and welcome back to Mason Zero MTG. Today we're going to be continuing my series on my new and improved cube. If you haven't been following along, this is the 5th episode, so please go ahead and check out White, Blue, Black, and Red that are already uploaded on the channel, including the video that came out before that, sort of explaining the initial cube project and what brought me to this point. To sum up rather quickly, it started out when I realized that my 540 card cube was just too big and too kind of all over the place, had too many themes. So my goal for this project was to narrow it down to 360 cards and focus more on archetypes rather than very specific synergies and themes. So in today's episode, we're going to go through the green cards. As per usual with all these videos, let me know in the comments below if you agree with my changes, agree with the cards that are in here, think there are any that should be added or taken out, and just general comments on the cube or color in general. As usual, there is a link down in the description to the cube on CubeTutor. Without further ado, let's start with Elvish Mystic, a 1-mana 1/1 that taps to add green to your mana pool. I think a card like this is pretty standard for a cube, just a 1-drop ramp creature in green. Ulvenwald Tracker is a 1-mana 1/1. You can pay 2 and tap it. Target creature you control fights another target creature. Most of green's creature removal is fight based. This guy enables you to do it over and over again. If you have a big creature, you can just start shooting down one creature a turn. I think it's a great card to have. Experiment 1 is a 1-mana 1/1 with Evolve. So when a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on Experiment 1. You can also remove 2 counters from it to regenerate it. This is a great little 1-drop that scales with the game as you cast bigger and bigger green creatures, and it can protect itself a bit. Rattleclaw Mystic is a 2-mana 2/1 that has Morph. You can unmorph it for 2. It taps for green, blue, or red, and when it's turned face up from being morphed, you add green, blue, red to your mana pool. So another great ramper at 2 mana. It's great, adds 3 colors. If you want to delay it a little bit, you can add more colors. Lotus Cobra. It is a 2-mana 2/1 with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This essentially, doubles each land that you play for the turn. It's a good way to get an extra mana a turn, basically. It can be very good. Really helps you ramp into bigger things. Noose Constrictor, 2-mana 2/2 with Reach. Discard a card. Noose Constrictor gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This really fuels graveyard strategies. Discarding things is something you might want to do in green. So it's a great thing to have if that is what you're going for. Beastcaller Savant is a 2-mana 1/1 with haste. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell. I like this one because of the haste. Yes, it's 2 mana, but I think that being able to add any color for a creature at hasty speed, I think is great. This card might not make the final cut as time goes on, but for now, I quite like it. Werebear, a 2-mana 1/1, tap to add green to your mana pool, and it has Threshold. It gets +3/+3 as long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. I like this guy as a mana dork, but also because he turns into a 4/4 as the game goes on and you get more cards into your graveyard. I'm a big fan of cards that scale with the game, and I think this one does nicely. Speaking of which, we have Sylvan Advocate, a 2-mana 2/3 with Vigilance, which is already decent, but as long as you control 6 or more lands, Sylvan Advocate and land creatures you control get +2/+2. We do have a half cycle of creature lands in the cube, and Sylvan Advocate being a 4/5 Vigilance later on in the game for 2 mana is very relevant. Again, love cards that scale. Scavenging Ooze is a 2-mana 2/2. You can pay a green and exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze and you gain 1 life. A great ability in a multitude of formats. It's slow graveyard hate, and it additionally makes your creature bigger and stems the bleeding a little bit with life gain. Sakura Tribe Elder is 2 mana 1/1. Sacrifice it to search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. This is a creature version of Rampant Growth that's arguably better because you get a free block out of it, and you can sacrifice it in response to the block. So a great card to have for ramping and for sacrificing. Genesis Hydra is X and 2 green for a 0/0. When you cast Genesis Hydra, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put a non-land permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Genesis Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. This allows you to make it small in the beginning or large at the end of the game. You get a free card off of it probably. Otherwise, it just kind of scales the more mana you get. Duskwatch Recruiter, a 2 mana 2/2. You can pay 3 and look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform Duskwatch Recruiter. On the other side, it is a 3/3 that makes your creature spells cost 1 generic less to cast, and it has the regular werewolf transforming stipulation, or if someone casts 2 spells, it transforms. Boon Satyr, a 3 mana 4/2 enchantment creature with Flash and Bestow for 5. Enchanted creature gets +4/+2. This is definitely one of the greater Bestow cards. Having Flash, that is a great thing to have, a great boon, if you will. So for 5 mana, giving your creature +4/+2 forever is pretty good. Manglehorn, a 3 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target artifact. Artifacts your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. I had a hard time going between this and Reclamation Sage. In the end, I like this a little more because of the fact that it's continuous artifact hate. You don't get the enchantment hate, but you get additional artifact hate. Eternal Witness, a 3 mana 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. A very solid card in many formats. Eternal Witness is just all around good. You can get any card back to your hand for the low cost of 3 mana with a 2/1 body attached to it. I don't think anyone's going to argue that card. Farhaven Elf, a 3 mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Just another good, relatively cheap ramp creature. Being attached to a creature is always nice. So we have that. Going into our spells, that doesn't seem right. That got accidentally in there. My apologies. Let me put that where it belongs. I think a few things got mixed up here. I had these in order. We have Witch Stalker. Oh, sorry about that. Witch Stalker is a 3 mana 3/3. Hexproof. Whenever an opponent casts a blue or black spell during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Witch Stalker. It's a bit of a corner case, but having a 3 mana 3/3 that also has hexproof is pretty nice. It's an extra bonus if it keeps getting bigger from casting blue or black spells. Great against control. Rishkar, Pima Renegade. 3 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Each creature you control with a counter on it has tap, add green to your mana pool. It's mana ramp. You get to have more mana dorks, make 2 of your creatures into mana dorks. Rishkar can be one of them. When you don't need the mana, they are bigger attackers. So all around a great card. Ronus, the Indomitable. 3 mana for a 5/5. Death Touch, indestructible. Ronus, the Indomitable, can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. You can pay 3 and another target creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. I like this god probably more than any of the other ones purely because it enables itself really well, probably better than some of the other ones. You can very easily get a creature with 4 power and start attacking with this. Vizier of the Menagerie, 4 mana for a 3/4. You may look at the top card of your library. You may cast the top card of your library if it's a creature card. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast creature spells. Green being very creature-based, obviously this is a great card. If you build a deck with green in it, you'll probably have a ton of creatures. This enables you to splash pretty well into different creatures, and really makes your deck a little more flexible if you have it out. Bloodspore Thrinax, a 4-mana 2/2 with Devour 1. So as it enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice any number of creatures, and this creature enters the battlefield with that many +1/+1 counters on it. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Bloodspore Thrinax. So you can sacrifice some of your mana dorks later in the game, or something like that, or tokens, and then each creature you play subsequently comes in with a ton of counters on it. Briarhorn, 3 and a green for 3/3, flash. When Briarhorn enters the battlefield, target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn, and it has Evoke for 2. I like this because it is a 2-mana combat trick if you want it to be, or it's a 4-mana combat trick that sticks around and has a body. I think it's a great card to have, very versatile. Next we have Gamekeeper, 4 mana for a 2/2. When it dies, you may exile it. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and put all other cards revealed this way into your graveyard. I love this card because it's just pure value. You sacrifice it, or you chump block, or literally anything, and you get a free creature out of it. It doesn't have to be a creature with a lower mana cost. It can be anything. You can have this die and get an 8-drop. Like, it's just pure value. Mycoloth, 5 mana for a 4/4 with Devour 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token for each +1/+1 counter on Mycoloth. Getting multiple tokens probably every turn, at least 2, is fantastic. This is a card that can get insane if left unchecked for a few turns. So very good 5-dropping green. Thragtusk is 5 for a 5/3. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life. When it leaves the battlefield, put a 3/3 green beast creature token onto the battlefield. A very good card to have, does something when it enters and leaves. Life gain and tokens are both always useful, and in addition to that, it's a pretty good body. Honored Hydra is 6 mana 6/6 with Trample and Embalm 4. I like this one because the Embalm cost is significantly less than the regular casting cost. So if this goes into your graveyard immediately from discarding or something, then you get some pretty good value out of it. That being said, a 6/6 trample for 6 is just fine. A 6/6 trample for 4 is even better. Ulvenwald Hydra is 6 mana. Ulvenwald Hydra's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control, and it has reach. And when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So it's a little bit of additional ramp once you get to 6 mana, and it just keeps growing the more lands you play. So this is a good Hydra in my book. Rampaging Baloths is 6 mana for a 6/6 trample, has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. This is another card that I love because it can just end the game. Even just playing 1 land per turn, you get a 4/4 beast for just playing a land. Couple that with some more green ramp cards, getting more landfall triggers, you are just going to go crazy. So this is a very good card for any green deck. Archetype of Endurance is an 8-drop for a 6/5. Creatures you control have hexproof. Creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and can't have or gain it. This is a crazy finisher that protects all of your creatures from non-combat based effects. It can just go insane, and you'll be able to attack with impunity. Our last green creature is Terastodon, an old favorite for sure. 8 mana for a 9/9. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each permanent put into a graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. And the versatility of this card is great. You can use it on yourself, blowing up some lands or whatever that you don't need anymore. You can blow up your opponent's lands or enchantments and artifacts. So it's very versatile in what you can use that on, and you can decide who gets those elephant tokens. On to the Planeswalkers. We have Nissa, Voice of Zendikar as our first one. It's a 3 mana for 3 loyalty. +1, put a 0/1 green plant creature token onto the battlefield. -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Or -7, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of lands you control. So this is just another cheap 3 mana Planeswalker that has a fair amount of value for its cost. Getting 0/1 plants doesn't seem like much, but it's a creature that can grow if you have counters or buffs or things like that. The -2 is great for going wide, and of course the -7 is great once you've ramped a lot, and if you can protect Nissa, then you just extend the game that much longer by refilling your hand and gaining a bunch of life. We also have Garruk Relentless, a 4 mana Planeswalker with 3 loyalty. When he has 2 or fewer loyalty counters on him, transform him. He has 2 zeros on the front. The first one is he deals 3 damage to target creature. That creature deals damage equal to its power to him. His other 0 is you put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield. And on his back side, we have Garruk the Veil Cursed. He has a +1. Put a 1/1 black wolf creature token with Death Touch onto the battlefield. His -1 is sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. And a -3, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So really nice in a graveyard-based deck, but certainly just as valuable in any green deck. I believe I need to rearrange a couple of these. Or, nope, that is correct. We just have a couple instants in green here. Our first one is Pulse of Marasa. It's 3 mana, return target creature or land card from a graveyard to its owner's hand. You gain 6 life. And fine graveyard recursion and a little bit of stabilization with that life gain. Become Immense is 6 mana with Delve. Target creature gets +6/+6 until end of turn. Purely just for the fact that this could only cost 1 mana. This card definitely makes the cut. It goes great on any giant trampler. Into the sorceries already, we have Prey Upon, which is just 1 green. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. A fine removal spell, cheap in green. You can have one of your giant guys fight something smaller. Commune with the Gods, 2 mana. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or enchantment from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. Obviously, card filtering and card drawing is nice. The graveyard aspect of this card is what pushes it over the top and into this cube because of the green graveyard synergies. This one really helps fuel the graveyard. Next, we have Channel, which is 2 green. Until the end of your turn, you can pay 1 life to add 1 generic mana to your mana pool, or 1 colorless mana, I should say. It's a lot of old text on this old card, but essentially that's what it does. Pay 1 life, get 1 mana. Very useful card for a variety of combos. You could get out a turn 2 Blightsteel Colossus, something crazy like that. You could do Channel, Fireball, things like that. So a lot of broken things you can do with this card. Next we have Farseek. 2 mana, search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. A great way to do some fixing. Also, I have a few non-basics that have the basic land type. Eldritch Evolution, 3 mana, as an additional cost to cast Eldritch Evolution, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, where X is 2 plus the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield, then exile your library, or shuffle your library, exile Eldritch Evolution. A pretty interesting card, asks you to sacrifice a creature, but in return, you get something larger. There are plenty of great green cards and other cards for Eldritch Evolution to go into. The limits of this card are high. There's a lot you can do with this card. Nissa's Pilgrimage, 3 mana. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards, reveal those cards, and put one onto the battlefield tapped and the rest into your hand. Then shuffle your library. If you have 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, instead search your library for up to 3 basic forest cards instead of 2. Harmonize, 4 mana to draw 3 cards. A normally out of character effect for green, but very useful. 4 mana to draw 3 cards is not bad, and especially in green, that is a nice effect to have to refill your hand. Spider Spawning, 5 mana, put a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach onto the battlefield for each creature card in your graveyard, has flashback for 6 and a black. Great for the graveyard deck. Obviously black and green are the main colors for that, with blue as well, so the flashback cost is easily paid for. Very fun card to finish a game with. Primal Command, 5 mana for another modal spell. You know how much I love those. Choose 2. Target player gains 7 life. Put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. Target player shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library, or search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. A lot of great options here. You can stem the bleeding with gaining 7 life, which is not insignificant. You can get rid of a non-creature permanent that's causing a problem, delay that for a turn. Shuffling your graveyard into your library can be good if you're running out of cards, or if your opponent is doing a graveyard strategy and you want to get rid of that. And then, of course, searching for a creature, you can find the card that is going to potentially win you the game. Overwhelming Stampede, 5 mana, until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. If you have even gone wide a little bit, even with a few creatures, this card can be insane. If you have one of those big green creatures we looked at earlier, you know, getting +4/+4 or +6/+6, something like that can be incredible on, you know, having a few smaller creatures like 1/1s and 2/2s. The fact that trample is tacked on is just icing on the cake. See the Unwritten, 6 mana, reveal the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest into your graveyard. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may put 2 creature cards onto the battlefield instead of 1. This is a great way to get something giant, like Blightsteel Colossus or Grizzlebrand or something like that, or a big 6, 7, or 8 drop. It's a good way to cheat things into play. It's really only great when you can get 2 of the creatures, but still digging 8 cards deep for a creature means that you're probably going to get a couple good options. So good all around. Next up is Lifecrafter's Bestiary. It's 3 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay green. If you do, draw a card. This is some of that great card advantage that green really lacks in a lot of cases. Normally card draw is tied to creatures, so this works perfectly. Whenever you cast a creature spell, just pay 1 green, draw a card, and you can even scry at the beginning of your upkeep, meaning that each of your draws in the normal draw step are going to be even smoother. So this is a fantastic card for any green deck. Next we have a few enchantments, starting with Oath of Nissa, 1 green. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature, land, or planeswalker from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast planeswalker spells. As I've mentioned, there's quite a few planeswalkers. There are 21 of them. So this card becomes nice and relevant for splashing for powerful cards like that. And of course, the filtering that happens when it enters the battlefield is pretty nice as well for just 1 mana. Vessel of Nascency is another 1 mana enchantment. You can pay 2 and sacrifice it to reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. This is of course good for filtering, also very good for getting cards into your graveyard, which is something green wants to do. Our last card is Cryptolith Rite, 2 mana for an enchantment. Creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I'm a big fan of this card. If you go wide at all, you can tap your creatures for mana and just get those big guys out even faster. Each of your creatures turns into an optional mana dork, which I think is great to have in many decks. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been the green cards of my cube. Tomorrow will be multicolored, and then will be colorless and probably lands. So I hope that you are enjoying this series so far. Please, like I said, let me know in the comments if there are any cards you think I shouldn't have, any cards you think I should add, any suggestions that you may or may not have. I would love to hear them. Until next time, I hope you are having a great day, a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.